Welcome back to NewsClick. We're discussing with Dr. Gopal Krishnan the nuclear energy program in India and what's happening to the nuclear energy programs elsewhere in the world. Gopal, when we look at the EPR story, it is clear that with the escalation of costs, a number of companies are pulling out of the EPR. There is Enel in Italy who has pulled out, Concentrica in England is pulling out. It appears that the nuclear energy program elsewhere is really slowing down, particularly in Europe. How do you look at the nuclear energy program today, considering that there was at one point it was being talked about nuclear renaissance and so on?
For one thing, there is a tremendously more awareness among various peoples all around the world about nuclear power, especially in Asia. Since Fukushima happened in our backyard, I notice China, even the Chinese people have started, earlier Chinese people were totally in the dark about nuclear, etc. But there are now, even though we don't hear much about it, if you go to China, you find local people are quite interested and looking into the nuclear power situation, what China is doing about nuclear power. Is that correct? Is that the right direction to go? These questions are coming up, which one would have never heard in China some time back. The same way, as you know, Germany is has already re-evaluated and taken a decision to taper off nuclear power by a particular date. France themselves have now, the new president of France has said that he will cut it down from 50% nuclear to 25% in a matter of 20 or 30 years. So I think there's a move all around the world to de-emphasize nuclear, because it is more now realized that both economically as well as from the public safety point of view, nuclear may not be any longer the right choice. Added to this, you should see that the price of renewable, the cost of renewable electricity generation from renewable sources has been crashing rather rapidly in these days, and pretty soon many countries will have a substantial chunk, may not be 50% right away, but a good chunk of their electricity generation from renewables, wind and solar to start with. And India is beginning to take solar seriously. A state like Gujarat, for example, now accounts for 60%, almost 60% of the solar which is generated till today. And for the first time, we see the Asia's largest solar electric power plant is in Gujarat. It is 250 megawatt electricity. So I think, coming back to nuclear, I think there is an inevitable slowdown taking place. Now, a lot of people are caught with a large number of reactors which are already in place, and therefore they, at least to take the full economic benefit of these investments, they will run their life till the end of their life. How many more are going to be added is the question. Those who are proponents of nuclear power and those who are in the business of manufacturing nuclear components, etc., are pushing hard to come up with new thinking, new designs, etc., which would solve some of the problems which are being raised. But every bit of that kind of problem solving is also adding to the cost. So they are caught in a dilemma.
Looking at the cost, it seems today it's winding down, at least in Europe, as well as US is really not putting in new reactors as the ones were threatening. But India and China are the two countries which seem to be still gung-ho about nuclear. What's happening in China?
As no reason, I had a chance to go 2-3 times to China at their invitation to attend certain conferences. All these conferences were centered around post-Fukushima analysis and decision making. Multinational type of groups which have met, and the last time I went was October of last year. And what I find is that you'll be surprised that the Chinese State Council, which is equivalent to our cabinet, at the central cabinet level, they met for 3 days to deliberate on a post-Fukushima report, not on the technical problem, this thing, entire thing about nuclear policy, how we should move differently or emphasize what things and de-emphasize what. So it was prepared by the State Council, the cabinet. In China, the academies of science, academies of engineering, all these directly report to the State Council. They're answerable to the cabinet, and these people together have prepared a major report for the study of the cabinet and with recommendations. And that is the one which Wen Jiabo and others, before this leadership change which happened recently, they had thoroughly gone through it, and then they have taken certain decisions on how we should change. A couple of the central points I'll tell you. One is that they said the pace at which we are now proceeding is a little too high, and it should be slowed down. And we have to proceed much more carefully and avoid certain things which we have been doing so far. One of the things is they said until a solution to inland situated or inland location nuclear plants can be found, we will not build any more plants within the inland areas of China, but we will confine the new plants to the coastal region.
Why is that so?
Now, their main worry is they have been watching the large amounts of water which was required, which was used in Fukushima to continuously keep the molten core from further causing a problem. And even today, there is a large amount of seawater is being pumped into the heated core, and that is flowing back into the sea with radioactivity in it. So this is the kind of a situation which was not envisaged anywhere before. Now, the inland locations that China have two problems. One is water shortage is everywhere except by the side of the major rivers. So the same way that we are also building in the coastal region, there are plans for inland region nuclear plants are along the Yangtze, which is their major river which cuts across them, and some of the other second level rivers which also have sufficient water. So it is river side, which France also has several such reactors. But then if an accident beyond design basis like Fukushima happens there, and if they have the requirement for continuously cleaning the reactor with or cooling the reactor with water, and then that water has to go out somewhere, there will be only way is to take it from the river and put it back again in the river. In the sea, the problem is not there because there is enough dilution, and perhaps over a period of time, a lot of fish will get killed, but even that problem will vanish after some time because it will. But in this case, if you take water from the Yangtze and put it back in the Yangtze, the canal systems for feeding all the agricultural fields in China, they all take off from the same river. So pretty soon you will be spreading this radioactivity inland into the farmlands in China. And once cesium and strontium and all that starts getting deposited there, for decades, if not centuries, it will lie there. And it will show up in the rice and show up in vegetables and all that. So they can't afford to have a reactor stationed inland, which can potentially have an accident of this kind. And interior China is also much more earthquake prone than any part of India. I mean, almost you look at the earthquake which have occurred in the last even 50 years, you find that lights will start blinking all over the Chinese mainland. So with that combination of a chance of an earthquake being high and cooling water, no other cooling water source is available other than the river, they don't want to have plants there.
That's a very interesting question, because it brings me straight away to one Indian plant which is being set up in Gorakhpur, which is very close to Hisar. And the only source of that nuclear plant, and these are 2 units of 500 megawatt each, is going to be a canal from Bhakra. Do you think that this really makes any sense?
You told me this just half an hour ago. Actually, I have not been exposed to this. Now, if this is the case, it is amazing to me, because interior ones that I know of are near the reservoir. I mean, in the case of Rajasthan, it is by the side of the Rana Pratap Sagar, the reservoir of the Rana Pratap Sagar Dam. And even there we have come close to facing some problems, like one of the Rajasthan reactors had an extra leak of heavy water, which brought out with it a whole lot of tritium, which is deuterium-3, I mean hydrogen-3. And that got washed out, and ultimately it couldn't be sent anywhere else except into that reservoir. So the reservoir, at least portions of the reservoir for a short period of time, was radioactive. It was never widely known because it was considered to be a very, very minor incident of some sort. But instead of deuterium leaking, suppose there was a reactor meltdown or a partial meltdown of that reactor, even today it will be a serious problem, because you will have to then take water from that reservoir and keep sending out strontium, cesium and much more stronger long half-life elements into that, and we'll have the same problem that the Chinese are dreading. Now, this is all because at least the reservoir has a certain capacity and dilution possibility. But a canal, first of all, does not have that much of water at all, and you cannot keep on taking from the canal and putting it back in the canal, because the canal waters are also again going in for agricultural use all over the place. So I mean, it's surprising that a reactor is designed, and you were mentioning that there are times when this canal could possibly run dry or low in water. Secondly, that there may be requirements for canal repair or something, that you will have to shut down this canal from time to time. So the entire water supply situation, not only under beyond design basis accidents, but also even under normal operation, appears to be somewhat in a questionable thing, and this is a matter of serious concern. It needs to be studied, and it is quite likely that the people living in that area have not been sensitized or do not understand the implications of this, that once they come to know of all this, probably they will also rise and object, and which I think people like me are inclined to say that such sensitization should be carried out. Otherwise, no nuclear engineer or reactor engineer in his senses will ever design a reactor which has to take cooling water from a canal.
That is, in fact, the reason that Atomic Energy Regulatory Board and the Atomic Energy Commission is seen with a slightly jaundiced eye by a lot of critics, that there seems to be a lot of hubris, that nothing will go wrong and no attempt to address the issues that may come up if something really does go wrong. And Gorakhpur being a classic example, where you might have designed it for normal operations, but certainly not for an accident, which is what is the cause for concern.
You're right, and I think what is lacking in this, if we expect the Atomic Energy Regulatory Board and in nexus with the DAE already, the Department of Atomic Energy, and the Government of India to sort out this problem, probably the day is not going to come. What we are lacking in India, and since I spent almost 20 years in the US, I can tell you, the difference I see is a situation like this. There would have been 3 nuclear engineering departments of various reputed universities who will raise this issue in one forum or other. The US National Academy of Sciences or the National Academy of Engineering will suo motu on their own, will decide that this problem needs to be studied in depth. They will put the best team of people to independently study this issue and come out with a report which then will be nationally published. And there are so many people who would be ready to, who will be capable of understanding such reports and then taking it through their representatives, and the two-party system helps this. If the Democrats are taking this decision to construct a reactor like this, the Republicans will go to town with that, and but they will be going with substantial evidence from what we lack, that kind of academic independence. Here, unfortunately, even the science academies are manned by people who are looking for the next Padma Shri or the next financial grant from the government. And this question of everything tied into one bundle of collusive activity is going to create problem for this country. And that's why ultimately in many important issues we are coming down to having to resort to street shouting and protests and all that, because it's out of desperation, because the real elements in society, organizations in society which should really come up and help the people and people's causes are not doing it.
Thank you very much, Gopal. Hope to see more of you as
Thanks.
these issues develop.
Thank you very much.